Okay guys, it's our third class on teaching aptitude for NTA, NET and JRF. So in this class let's look at the factors affecting teaching. Okay, so let's look at the factors affecting teaching. So the first point which we need to look is educational qualification of a teacher. Okay, what is actually factors affecting teaching? Factors affecting teaching are the factors or the determinants which affect a teaching skill or the effectiveness of a teacher. Okay, how well he or she can teach. So the first factor is educational qualification of that teacher. So it is generally assumed that highly qualified teachers should teach higher classes and less qualified teachers should teach lower classes. Okay, so we all know that to teach for lower primary schools you just need 12th level qualification, and then you can go to a course called TTC and you can teach students from a very lower class like primary school. Okay, but if you want to teach for colleges, you need to have a postgraduate degree as well as you need to have a national eligibility test. Okay, qualification also. So for teaching for lower class students you need to have a very lower qualification, and for teaching for higher class students you need to have a higher qualification. It is the first point. Okay, so then the next point is skills. Okay, so adequate skill set helps a teacher to do his or her job in more effective manner. Okay, some teaching skills may come with birth, but for many others a prospective teacher has to make conscious efforts. So teaching is not just about telling something to a group of students. It's about the way you tell, the way you present your concepts before students. So to do such a thing you need to have adequate skills. Okay, so some people will have it by birth. If a person does not have it by birth, he has to make conscious efforts to develop such a skill. Okay, it's the second point. Third point is experience of a teacher. So teaching, just like any profession, it will get more proficiency through experience. The more you teach, the more a better teacher you become. So experience of a teacher is also a factor which affects teaching. Okay, teacher himself is a learner all the time. Okay, a good teacher would always like to share his enhanced knowledge with students, and the experience also helps in better handling of student queries and classroom management. Okay, so experience counts in. So our last point is subject matter. Okay, sometimes when a teacher teaches a subject in which he is not specialized, he cannot create any effect through his teaching, but the same teacher can teach his specialized subject in a better way. So especially in colleges and all, teachers specializes in a particular subject and they will only teach that subject because the subject will give a certain kind of intrigue to them, as well as it excites that teacher as well. So he can teach that particular subject very effectively. At the same time, when some other subject is given to him, he cannot teach that well and that effectively. Okay, so the subject is also a factor which affects the teaching. Okay, so these are the four factors which affect the teacher. The first one is educational qualification of a teacher, second is skill, the third one is experience of the teacher, and the fourth one is subject matter of a teacher. Okay, so please take a note. Okay, the National Council of Educational Research and Training, which is known as NCRT, in its publication known as Core Teaching Skills in 1982, has laid stress on the following teaching skills which a teacher should have in his or her arsenal. Okay, so what are those teaching skills according to NCRT? So the first one is writing instructional objectives. Instructional objectives means how the teacher is going to instruct, or how he or she is going to guide the students. He has to write those instructional objectives. Okay, that's the first point. The second point is organizing the content which the teacher is going to study. Then the third point is creating set for introducing the lesson. A set has to be created before introducing a lesson. Then the fourth point is then going out there and introducing the lesson. And the fifth point is structuring the classroom questions. So while teaching, one of the most important aspects is asking frequent questions, okay, to the classroom. So those questions have to be structured properly. The sixth point is question delivery and its distribution. Question has to be delivered properly, as well as it has to be distributed among all the students. Okay. Then the seventh point is response management. How the teacher is managing the response from the students. Okay. Some time there may be favorable, and sometime there may be unfavorable response. The eighth point is explaining. Later on, after asking the question and after teaching the content, teacher need to explain it once more. Then the ninth point is illustrating with examples. It's an important point. A teacher has to illustrate each and every concept with proper examples. Okay, then only a student can grasp properly. Okay, there are more points. The next point is using teaching instructional facilities like charts or like graphs or something like that. Okay. Then the next point is stimulus variation. He has to look at the stimulus variation of each student. Okay. The 12th point is pacing of the lesson. How fast and how slow a lesson should be taught. Some lessons can be taught very fastly because the classroom might have already learned about that lesson before. Some might be paced very slowly because of the complications of that content. Okay, so pacing of the lesson is also crucial. The next point is promoting pupil participation. So just like taking seminars and all, pupil participation can be ensured. Okay. Then the next point is use of blackboard. Blackboard need to be used very properly, whether you are taking a problem paper or a problem based subject, or you are taking a theory based subject. Blackboard is need to be used very properly. The next point is achieving closure of the lesson. Okay. Then the next point is giving assignments. Next one is evaluating the pupils' progress. And the next point is diagnosing pupils' learning difficulties and taking remedial measures. Okay. The last point is management of the class. Okay. So these are the skills which NCERT laid on its publishing or publication called Core Teaching Skills in 1982. Okay. Okay. Now discuss about various leadership styles of teachers. Okay. So the first style is transformational leader or transformational teacher. The first one is transformational leader or transformational teacher. So what does this style includes? The first point is these highly influential leaders or teachers serve as a role model to inspire others. Okay. So these kinds of teachers they inspire their students. So their students wants to become like their teachers. Okay. The second point here is this leadership style involves improving the morale and job performance of team members or students by connecting with their sense of identity and the collective identity of the organization. Okay. So this kind of a leadership style will increase the morale of a student. Okay. The third point is a transformative leader or teacher is a visionary who inspires others and encourages critical thinking and innovation. Okay, so a transformative leader, he inspires his students for critical thinking. Okay, so examples of transformational leaders include politicians like Winston Churchill. Okay, business visionaries like Steve Jobs. Okay, so these are the transformational leaders. The next kind of leadership or style of a teacher is participatory leadership or participatory teaching. The first point is leaders or teachers who employ his hands-on style seek to bring more democratic dimension to management or teaching instead of utilizing a traditional top-down approach. This leadership style recognizes that employees or students are stakeholders in the organization are entitled to their own voice. So these points are related with management, which we need not have to take a serious note here. We need to look at in a participatory teacher. He is more democratic. He hears a lot from his students and he teaches according to the will of his student. Okay. The next point here is participatory leaders empower employees who will be most affected by certain decisions to have participation and or decision making capabilities in addressing those issues. Okay, so these kinds of points, just you need to just look at it because it's not related with teaching, it's related with management. Okay, in participatory teaching you need to focus that a teacher who is more democratic is a participative teacher. Okay, that's the second point. The next kind of teaching is value based leader or value based teacher. Okay, so what is a value based teacher? Value based leaders or teachers guide their teams or students by encouraging others to act in accordance with organization's core value. Okay, so a value based teacher guides his students according to the core value of a organization. Okay, organization means an institution. The second point is instead of focusing exclusively on metrics, value based leadership drives positive change by emphasizing the organizational mission and purpose. Okay, in a value based teaching, the teacher is more concerned about changing or making a positive change towards the students. Okay, the third point is this means having a leader who walks the talks and upholds the founding principles of the organization. So the teacher himself has to first follow the values, then he has to inspire his students or he has to make sure his students are also following such values. Okay, the next point is this type of leader is driven by his or her core values which is modeled. Okay, these value based leaders can be seen more in political parties and all. Okay, because they will follow a separate kind of, what will you say, ideology, and also they make sure they are the cadre will also follow such ideology. Okay, so such kind of teaching is known as value based teaching. The next point is APJ Abdul Kalam, the former president of India and one of the country's best known scientists, followed this type of leadership style. Okay, he was a value based teacher. Our great former president Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The next kind of leadership is situational leadership. Okay, so what is situational leadership? This model was developed by business consultant and best-selling author Ken Blanchard and behavioral scientist Paul Hersey. So Ken Blanchard and Paul Hersey, they developed this leadership style. Okay, it is a framework for leaders to match their behavior to the performance needs of those which are working to influence. Okay, so in situational type of leadership, the leadership will change according to the persons who are standing before you. Okay, the next point is situational leaders must have the ability to diagnose an individual's performance, readiness to complete a specific task. Okay, so the situational leaders must diagnose, or he has to find out the individual's performance and his ability, readiness to complete a specific task. The second point here is adapt leader behavior based on the diagnosis. Okay, so he has to change his leadership style according to the findings. Okay, the next point here is Communicate an influence approach in manner that followers can both understand and accept. He has to communicate properly. The next point is advance by making move towards higher performance. Okay, so you need to advance according to the as the employees are starting performing. Okay, the next kind of leadership here is servant leadership. Okay, so what is a servant leadership? First point here is servant leaders enrich the lives of others by focusing on building better organization and ultimately creating a world that is more caring and equitable. So a servant leader try to make an infrastructure. Okay. The next point is the servant leader dedicates himself or herself to the growth and well-being of the people in the community. So he serves more. A servant leader serves for the betterment of the followers. Okay. So that kind of teaching. So a teacher who creates an infrastructure for the students are servant leaders or servant leadership styled teachers. The next point is instead of focusing on accumulating power, this leader shares power and helps others perform as highly as possible. Okay. The next kind is autocratic leadership. So we all know from the word itself, autocratic leaders are more authoritative leaders. Okay. Autocratic leadership is the inverse of democratic leadership because they are more authoritative. Next point is in this leadership style, the leader makes a decision without taking input from anyone who reports to them. Okay, the leader takes only the decision which comes to his mind. He will not take any decision from outside or his followers or his students. Okay. The next point is employees are neither considered nor consulted prior to a direction. So these points are basically more inclined towards management. Okay. So we need to look that the teacher who does not take any opinion from students are autocratic leadership styled teachers. Okay. The next one is laissez-faire leadership. So what is laissez-faire? The French term laissez-faire literally means translate let them do. Okay, letting others do. And leaders who embrace it afford nearly all authority to their employees. Okay, so if a teacher is giving more authority, okay, some function or some kind of a celebration is happening in a college or a school, and a teacher is assigned as a charge, as an in charge of that kind of a function or some kind of a program, and he or she gives completely to the students under him, and they are saying that do whatever you like but do it properly. Okay, and the teacher is just watching the program which is done by the students. That kind of leadership is called laissez-faire leadership. Okay. The next point here is although laissez-faire leadership can empower employees by trusting them to work however they'd like, it can limit their development and overlook critical company growth opportunities. These are related with management. Okay, so these points need not be focused much. The next kind is transactional leadership. Okay, so what is a transactional leadership? Transactional leaders are fairly common today. These managers reward their employees for precisely the work they do. Okay, so if a direction is given, in case if you are mentioning about teaching, some kind of a test is given and the teacher is giving some reward to the student who has attained the maximum mark. Okay, that is more like a transactional leadership. The next point is a marketing team can receive a scheduled bonus for helping generate certain number of leads by the end of the quarter. Is a common example of transactional leadership. Transactional leadership can establish roles and responsibilities for such employees. These are all connected with management. The next point is this leadership style can use incentive programs to motivate employees, but they should be consistent with company's goals and used in addition to unscheduled gestures of appreciation.